Hi, Hugh Lopdell here from Oak Park Chartered Accountants. Before I start my video, I'm connecting buyers with sellers of pharmacies from around the country, so if you're buying or selling, flick me an email and I'll do my best to connect you up. Also remember my 4-part video series entitled Buying a Pharmacy. If you're buying or you know someone who is, we're putting the QR code up now, so you can pause this video, scan that, and later on have a look at it or pass that on to your friend. Okay, now in February I presented a video entitled The Discounter Battle Part 2. If you haven't watched it yet, you probably need to in order for this video to make the best sense. You can check it out on Oak Park's Facebook and YouTube channels or on our website. That video was an attempt to get to the heart of the discounter pharmacy model, how it ticks, whether it should have a place in New Zealand, and why the government's actions in allowing it to become so dominant in New Zealand is so seriously flawed. And I described it as rot in the system. Now, the video received broad thumbs up from around the country from community pharmacists, so it was worth doing. But if we stopped there, it would have been for nothing, which would be a shame. So now for the hard part, which is what do we do about it? And it is a hard one, because normally I find if you do a good job of isolating a problem, the solution pops out automatically and is obvious, but not here. And this is the reason, I believe. Discounters are not the only problem pharmacies face. It is just the latest one. So why are there so many problems in pharmacy and they never seem to get solved? I want to give you my perspective of the impediments I see not only to the discounter problem getting solved, but to any problem in pharmacy in this country getting solved. Now, for those of you, and there will be many, who have an announced discounter arriving in your town or suburb, I have advice and encouragement and some specific actions you can take at the end of this video. Okay, now the first impediment to dealing not just with a discounter problem, but with any problem in this country, lack of priority. Community pharmacy occupies a permanent low priority in terms of health policy. The government's budget this year had no money for pharmacy. Last year, the government's second COVID handout to pharmacy, $18 million, was given almost no resources to get it right, so they got it wrong. And most of it's been returned unused. Some of you held out hope last year that the Simpson report would look at pharmacy issues, but it didn't. Pharmacy, unfortunately, seems to rank so far down the priority list with successive governments, not just the current one, that you'd be forgiven for thinking it isn't on the list at all. Pharmacy issues never seem to be important enough. So it's not surprising the co-payment issue is never getting sorted. Now, the restructuring of the health system is not going to help this either, I'm sorry to say, I believe. The Minister's time, energy, focus, and money is going to be tied up on this huge restructuring for some time to come. Now, sorry if this sounds a bit depressing, but stick with me. I am being constructive and I have a solution at the end. The second impediment to fixing things in the pharmacy industry, lack of power. Pharmacy owners must look at the protection given to their own employees under the Employment Relations Act, and which requires the employer to show good faith bargaining and a fair process, and wish they had anything like that with the Ministry of Health. You know, pharmacies have historically been handed contracts to sign, sometimes complex, with little time to read them, and the threat of not getting paid if they don't sign them. More recently, they must sign a revision of the contract in order to receive the additional APAS money. Pharmacies get whatever the government wants to give them or not give them, and seem continually in a weak position when it comes to negotiating a fair contract, fair remuneration, or just getting listened to. There's token consultation only, old issues don't get fixed, new problems get added to the list, and the unresolved issues build up. And this happens year after year. The third impediment, lack of cohesiveness. Community pharmacies are highly aligned when it comes to agreeing on what the problems are in their industry. I know this because I talk with a lot of pharmacies. But you are not unified. You are hundreds of individuals spread over the country, all of one mind pretty much, but not unified into one big voice. You're just a lot of little voices. Even the loudest of you is a little voice, and little voices, as you know, are easy to ignore. And you are roundly ignored. If you were employees, you'd probably form a collective, a union, but you're not. Okay, the fourth impediment to fixing things in the pharmacy industry is a question. Is the fox in charge of the henhouse? In other words, are the institutions charged with supporting and feeding you actually your predators? Now, I phrase this as a question so you can answer it rather than me being the judge. I was talking with a DHB pharmacy portfolio manager a while ago about the imminent opening of a chemist warehouse in their area. I won't say which DHB region, I won't say if it was a he or a she. I said to them they must realise that if they grant a contract to this chemist warehouse, because there was a pharmacy right next door, that pharmacy would almost certainly have to close. Their response to me, and I quote, was, "Why should I care?" I just about spat my coffee over my keyboard. It was a staggeringly heartless and ignorant bureaucratic answer. But I fear it isn't just one person's attitude, but rather something systemic. Because I've heard many pharmacies describe an attitude they have struck with DHBs over the years that is similar. It's probably linked to the fact that pharmacies are commercial businesses. And I have two comments about that. One, they are not entirely. Pharmacies really are quasi-government organisations run commercially by independent business people. The second thing I'd say is the fact that pharmacies are commercial businesses, which for some reason seems to earn them the disdain of DHBs, probably makes them one of the most efficient sections of New Zealand's healthcare system. So pharmacies' commercial savvy should be applauded and supported. Pharmacies are vital and high-performing partners for DHBs in the delivery of healthcare to the community, or they should be. But that's not how they are treated by DHBs. So, is the fox in charge of the henhouse? If so, and it seems so, that is a huge problem that needs to be addressed. Restructuring DHBs will not address it. It is a culture issue. It is a commercial savvy issue. All right, the fifth impediment to fixing things in the pharmacy industry: pharmacists are nice. You are a nice bunch of people, you pharmacists. And we love to add another pharmacy client at Oak Park, partly because you're just so darn nice to deal with. You're appreciative of everything we do for you. Most pharmacists I describe as kind, good-natured, humble, which is good. It suits the job you do. But there is a problem. You tend to hate confrontation. You go along with things, you don't rock the boat. Am I right? Now, if people of that kinder, humbler nature are bullied, are ignored, are taken advantage of, they don't naturally fight back. So, when the government, having grappled with all its priorities and competing demands for a piece of the healthcare pie, decides for yet another cycle, as they just have, to leave pharmacy issues or extra funding too far down the priority list to get anything, they know pharmacy won't kick up a fuss. It's not in your nature. Okay, now, drum roll, if you like. The sixth and final impediment, and the one I have been leading up to, it is very, very important, I believe. The sixth impediment to getting things fixed in the New Zealand pharmacy industry, weak advocacy. Everything I've already said points to one huge unmet need of the pharmacy industry in this country, and that is the need for strong advocacy to government. A pharmacy friend of mine 6 years ago told me about a complicated 20 or was it 30 page ICPSA he'd been given 1 week to read, consider or sign, or he wasn't going to get funded. And I said to him, you guys are bullied. What you need is an old school Ken Douglas type character representing you to the minister and to cabinet. You know, someone to take your case strongly, not take a backward step, and not let government get away with ignoring you all the time. Now, maybe not quite a Ken Douglas character, but you understand what I mean, someone firm. Now, in 6 years, my view hasn't changed, it's only strengthened. I copied the following from the Guild's website. The Guild's role, in their words, includes advocating for community pharmacy with DHBs and the Ministry of Health, and lobbying politicians to improve the position of community pharmacy. Question: how are they doing on both fronts? Where was your industry 10 years ago compared to now on the big issues? The largest issues, according to pharmacies I have spoken to, are static remuneration, discounters, and the copay. All these issues are in a much, much worse position than they were 10 years ago. So, why is the Guild so ineffective at lobbying and advocating on these big issues? Now, I don't know the answer, but if I was to try and find the answer, I'd start by asking 2 questions. 1, if the Australian Pharmacy Guild can lobby their government to remove the co-payment discount, why can't the New Zealand's Pharmacy Guild? I'm sure it wasn't easy for them, but they got it done. So what can our guild learn from the Aussies? Quite a lot, it seems. It would be easy to do. Just jump on a plane to Canberra and ask the right people the right questions, learn and improve your game. The second thing I'd ask is, how ideal is it for the board of the Guild to be filled with pharmacists, given what I said earlier? The lobbying arm of the pharmacy industry is probably the one place in the pharmacy industry where you don't want it stacked full of pharmacists. You know, organisational effectiveness theory 101. Deploy specialists wherever possible, especially in key roles. Lobbying and advocacy is, I believe, the most urgently absent skill and talent in the pharmacy industry in this country. It is a specialist skill. I was on a Zoom call recently with some pharmacists to advise them on how they might fight the granting of a contract to the chemist warehouse in the area. When one of them said, well, thanks for your help on this, Hugh, but isn't it the Guild's job to do this for us? My answer to him is my question to you. In regards to handling the discounter threat or any threat to pharmacy in this country, is the Guild part of the solution or is the Guild part of the problem? Now, most of you are Guild members, I guess, so I'm going to let you be the judge of that. Because only you can change that. Okay, now I said at the start I had some advice for pharmacies who have an imminent discounter arrival and who are very worried about that prospect. A few pharmacies in New Zealand are going on the offensive. They're exploring their legal options and taking steps to ensure DHBs fairly and lawfully exercise their power to award new contracts. My advice to such pharmacies has been to meet together, the pharmacies in that area, and to have a unified approach. Appoint a spokesperson, preferably the feistiest of the group. That spokesperson can contact me. I'll put you in touch with a barrister that is helping others around the country. Give that spokesperson all your support, including financially, because legal fees could mount up. And prepare to fight. It is gloves off for this. It takes some courage for pharmacy owners to take this fight on, because they're up against some fairly heavily resourced organisations. And this is not pharmacies picking a fight because they like to fight, and I've explained that already. They're fighting, if not for their survival, at least to stop a fair portion of the value of their business, which they've built up over years or maybe decades, being lost. But be encouraged. I'm hopeful about the possibility of success here. As each new area decides to challenge the DHB on the granting of a contract to a new discounter, they add their weight to the overall effort across the country and support the others who are taking that on. If you're in that situation, drop me an email and I'll do what I can to help. All right, hopefully this has been helpful. I don't say any of this, by the way, to get things off my chest. That would just be self-serving. My whole purpose is to be constructive and to help community pharmacy. Okay, that's all for this time. Thanks for listening. Hugh Lopdell from Oak Park, Chartered Accountants.